Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman, and thanks for sharing part of your weekend with us. On the show tonight, brothers who served 25 years for murder they were later exonerated for are still waiting for a certificate of innocence.
Shows a sign of what the city of Chicago has done to the Inglewood area.
The impact of a shuttered train stop on Inglewood and how residents are organizing to reopen it. A trio of operas are tackling modern topics at the Lyric. Summer's on the way, we hope. Why not work where you play? Find out how to apply for a summer job with the Park District.
He saved my life. Boxing saved my life.
And two retired boxing champions reflect on their days in the ring as the Golden Gloves tournament celebrates 100 years. All that coming up, but our first story tonight, two brothers who say they're still waiting for justice. It's right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, is made possible in part by Fifth Third Bank and by the support of these donors.
At Fifth Third, we believe when diverse voices are heard and empowered, communities are made stronger, lives are made better, and the future holds greater promise for all. That's why we're proud to support Chicago Tonight Black Voices. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can drive change.
Two brothers say they are still waiting for justice after spending more than 25 years in prison for a crime they didn't commit. In 1994, brothers Sean Tyler and Reginald Henderson were convicted of murder after being tortured into false confessions. They were exonerated in 2021. Tyler and Henderson say last week they were hoping to close this long and wrenching chapter in their lives by receiving certificates of innocence from the court. But instead, they were told they'll need to prove their innocence in a new hearing. Joining us now with more are brothers Sean Tyler and Reginald Henderson. Carl Leonard, who represents Sean Tyler, and Jennifer Bongine, who represents Reginald Henderson. We did contact the state's attorney's office. They said they cannot comment on pending litigation. We thank the four of you for joining us. Reginald Henderson, let's start with you, please. You have said that having to return to the courthouse so many times for all of these steps in the process has been re-traumatizing for you. Tell us what you mean.
Well, just going back, reliving a situation where you thought was once over, having to relive it over and over again, it's trauma again. So just imagine physically being beaten and now having to go through the mental part of it, and that is continuously walking up the same steps that not only did my sister pass at, but the same steps that we've continuously had to walk through to justify who we are.
Sean, how are you preparing yourselves for this next hearing?
Trying to trust the process, trying to really put it in my head that although Kim Fox and the state's attorney office wants to have a hearing, that they're really gonna, I'm trying to believe that they're really gonna throw the towel in. Honestly, and I could be fooling myself as I have before many a times, but I want to have just a little bit of faith in the system, which again has shown itself plenty of times to me to be broken.
I would imagine it is difficult to trust a process that you believe has wronged you a great deal since you were a teenager.
I agree with you on that. And it is hard, but at the same time, like I said, you want to. Not that it's going to play out like that, but you want to. You want to believe that that the system, that the state's attorney office won't let us continue to get taken advantage of, as we have for the past 25 and 27 years. It's 30 years later now.
Jennifer Bongine, explain for us, please, the legal significance of a certificate of innocence.
So a certificate of innocence is where the state affirmatively says you are innocent of these crimes. And the most important piece of it is that it gives some measure of justice in the sense of giving compensation. It's paltry by comparison to what these individuals have lost, but it is an affirmative acknowledgement. and it is important. It also gives them some money to get on their feet. It's very difficult when people come out of prison, particularly innocent people, because they don't actually get the same services that people who have done their done the time for crimes they've actually committed and come out and go on parole. These guys have been exonerated, so they don't come out to the same resources, and therefore they really struggle because getting jobs still, even though they don't have this conviction in their background, they still have to explain to people where they've been for the last 20 years. So the certificate of innocence gives them some money. It gives them affirmative declaration from the state, and it is an important part of the process. And unfortunately, it's an obstacle that has become very difficult and shouldn't be so difficult. Once the state has said we believe they're innocent enough to let them go, they should be declared innocent a little more routinely. So we still have a hearing to go to. This is not over by any stretch, but it has been longer than it should have been.
And we're going to come back to the hearing discussion as well. Carl Leonard, what are, though, the legal justifications for innocence not being an automatic outcome of exoneration?
Well, I think the law actually says that if your conviction was vacated on the basis of a claim of innocence, that should be enough. You know, the state disagreed with us, and ultimately the judge disagreed with us in this case, that standard applies here. So we have to prove these guys innocent again, and the burden's on us. Normally you think of the criminal justice system as the state having to prove you guilty. In this context, we have to prove Sean and Reginald innocent.
Carl, is this a typical hurdle to have to leap to receive a certificate of innocence?
It's not uncommon, but in other instances, the state agrees that the individuals are entitled to a certificate of innocence, and that process is very opaque to me. I don't know how they decide when they're going to oppose and when they're not going to oppose. I definitely don't understand how they arrived at the decision here to oppose these two certificates of innocence after agreeing that Sean and Reginald should be exonerated, after spending literally years. They spent over 5 years looking at the evidence in Sean's case before they decided to, on their own motion, exonerate him. So how they decided to go from that point to opposing the certificate of innocence, I do not know.
Reginald, at a press conference last week, you held up a pillow with a photo of your mother, whom you lost shortly after that exoneration in 2021. Give us a sense of what, these years of imprisonment took from you and your family and your life.
Well, as my brother alluded to earlier, when we had the interview, we try to get people to understand the significance in a woman who had both of her children taken away from her. She willingly told my younger brother to, go to the police station and, see what the police want, not knowing that 25 years and 27 years later that we would be released from prison for some things we didn't do. So I try to get people to understand, like, her mentality and the burden that it put on this woman, and who later suffered from a heart attack that I end up, doing CPR on her. But I lost her, and it's been rough. It's just we're trying to make a way, man. The only thing I can say is that we continuously, again, trust in the process and hope that, the change come about, because it's definitely necessary and it's definitely needed. Two guys coming home at 46 and 45 with nothing, literally nothing. My mother ill, sickling, so it's the struggle, and it has been a struggle. It continues to be a struggle, whether it be mentally, physically, and or emotionally. So, we're just looking for the difference in the change. It's simple as this. Sorry, not to prolong it, but it's simple as this. The certificate of innocence will allow us to finally go to our mother grave site and tell her it's something that you've always wanted that we have that's here. It's two things you want to do, and that's you want to be right by God, and you want to do right by your parents. And that's all we wanted to ever do.
All right, Sean, I'm going to come back to you in a minute. Jennifer, I want to get you back in. What are the next steps for Sean and Reginald?
So we have a hearing scheduled, and there will be evidence and testimony presented, much like any other hearing, and the state will likely, or maybe not, we'll find out, try to present evidence. We don't really know how this will all shake out because our clients are innocent. So I don't know what evidence they think they're going to put on that's going to show otherwise. It may just be a delay tactic. It's hard to know, as Carl pointed out. We don't really know why they do what they do. Sometimes they object, sometimes they want a hearing, sometimes they don't object and they agree. So there's not a lot of predictability, but we're confident that the evidence will show that they're innocent, as we've always known and as we feel that we've already proven. And so we're going to have that hearing next month, I think, is the date. And eventually we believe we're going to get the COI.
And of course, I want to reiterate that we did reach out to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. They have said they cannot comment on this because the litigation is still pending. But Carl, what are you expecting at this hearing in May?
I'm expecting to prove that Sean is innocent. I'm expecting to put on evidence of the abuse that he suffered at the hands of these police officers, medical evidence contemporaneous back then about how he was spitting up blood and had to be taken to the hospital immediately after his so-called confession. I'm expecting to put all of that evidence on, and I don't know how the state plans to put these officers on to deny that they did this in light of the evidence that we have, but that's the plan.
Reginald, how would you say this? Actually, Sean, I want to come to you first. Sorry. If you are able to get their certificates, what are you hoping that does for you and your brother?
I mean, again, it gives you it gives you a start. Not that it's gonna be able to make up for what took place, but it will give you a start to start moving forward and kind of plugging in the holes that somewhat once missing. Like I said, I left at 17 and came back at 42. I'm 46 now. So we've been having an ongoing fight since 1994, almost 30 years later. So to receive it and anything that comes behind it can do nothing but help. That's all it can do. It won't fix nothing. It won't, just make things just a little more easier moving forward. That's it.
Easier, some of the things, including, getting a job if you were looking for one, or finding housing. Like how might that be impacted?
All of the above. All of the above. To be able to go anywhere, just to feel free. Aside from that, people don't understand. To be somewhat told that it's 2 levels of free is mind blowing. To be exonerated, you believing that you're free. Only to go somewhere and they tell you have to be free 2 times in order to get upstairs. You understand what I'm saying? I'm going into a place where they telling me this for free people. I get in here, you tell me, no, it's another free you have to be. So again, we want the other free. I want to be fully freed. I want to be, not even to be treated, because that'll never be as far as being treated like you're free. I just want to know that I'm free. The certificate of innocence will let me know that you are free. You did not do it. You had nothing to do with it, and all of the things that come with it. So that's where I'm at with it right there.
And often associated, to monetary value, but it's not that. It's not just monetary value. It's the essence of just knowing that you're free. Just being able to come out your house and be free and not worry about the neighbors thinking, oh, I wonder if they know I was locked up, or
It'll be in the past, and you'll have that certificate that no one can take away. That's where we'll have to leave it. Reginald Henderson, Sean Tyler, Jennifer Bongine, and Carl Leonard, thanks to all of you for joining us.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A mile-long gap between Green Line stations. That's what some Inglewood residents have faced for nearly 30 years since the Racine Green Line station closed down. After years of efforts to reopen the shuttered stop, there's been some momentum in recent months, including an outpouring of support at the ballot box last month. Here's Nick Blumberg with the story.
This stop is abandoned. And it shows a sign of what the city of Chicago has done to the Inglewood area.
When the CTA closed the Racine stop on the Green Line in January 1994, it was supposed to be a temporary closure for repairs. The station never reopened.
To get off at Halsted or to get off at Ashland, we had to spend extra money on CTA fares to travel back towards Racine. Or we had our young people traveling through areas that was uncharted for them, through different neighborhoods, trying to get back to Racine, which caused a safety issue.
For years, local leaders have pushed to get the station reopened. They got an advisory referendum on the ballot in the February 28th election asking voters whether they wanted to see Racine back up and running.
93% of voters, not only in the precinct of this station or surrounding precincts, but all precincts of the 16th ward, voting yes and demanding that the station be reopened.
In March of last year, the CTA told WTTW News it didn't have the funding needed to reopen the station, and said a 2017 ridership study found the station would see fewer average weekday rides than when it was closed in the 1990s. By December of last year, CTA President Dorval Carter said in a Sun-Times op-ed, quote, "The CTA and the city are fully committed to pursuing a reopened Racine Green Line station and making it a vital component of the community's revitalization." And in January, the CTA got $2 million in federal funding for a feasibility study on reopening the stop.
There's community support, CTA support, and there's already some catalytic investments going on, so that's a really good opportunity.
The Metropolitan Planning Council's Audrey Wenning says it's not just about improved travel times, it's a way to add momentum to ongoing economic development and quality of life improvements.
Opening the station could even build further upon that, help attract population, and create a much more walkable and vibrant area.
The CTA says the effort is still in the early stages, with the full cost and timeline unclear. In a statement, the transit agency tells WTTW News, quote, "As with all CTA planning processes, communication and coordination with the community will be an important component, and the CTA looks forward to discussion with all community stakeholders and residents."
For residents, this is a no-brainer. For a lot of decision makers, it either is or should be a no-brainer to open something that should have never been closed, and to put a concentrated effort in supporting corridors in Inglewood such as Racine.
For Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, I'm Nick Blumberg.
The CTA tells WTTW News the estimated price tag could be as high as $100 million to reconstruct the station house, the platform, and do some historic preservation. They say the first steps are preliminary design and engineering work. Once that's done, the agency would need to know what local and federal sources have the money to fund the project. Up next, a new trio of operas at the Lyric. The Lyric Opera is premiering Proximity, a trio of new operas that take on modern topics like gun violence. To develop the libretto for The Walkers, actress and playwright Anna DeVere Smith worked with the organization Chicago Cred to hear from people impacted by gun violence. Here's DeVere Smith on why she says opera is the perfect medium for those deeply emotional stories.
And the evening is called Proximity, and I was a part of naming it that, thinking about how proximate are we to the things that we think have nothing to do with us, you know, that problem over there. What's our proximity to it? We know we can't be it. We can't live in some of these communities, but if we understand our proximity, maybe there's something that can be done.
Cut off the snake at the head, thou banging with Daya.
Places where people perform are places where our identities are muted enough that our ability for empathy becomes seduced. It expects, embraces, and delivers on a heightened emotion. And it is very attractive, even when the subject is not attractive. There's a lot of beauty up on that stage, the beauty that Yuval has created visually, the beauty of the music. The singers' voices are just entrancing. So I think there's something there that meets an audience differently. I hope what it does, because, you know, it's about a very, an issue that's haunted Chicago for a very long time, at least since the 60s. I hope it brings people along. Our opera is called The Walkers, because I'm dedicating it to Arnie and Curtis Toller and others who I see as walking with folks as they try to make this important transformation in their lives, and they don't give up on them.
Proximity will be presented at the Lyric Opera through April 8th. The Chicago Golden Gloves amateur boxing tournament is celebrating its centennial this year. Some famous fighters have duked it out for the Golden Gloves since its first tournament in 1923. Names like Sonny Liston, Joe Louis, and Muhammad Ali. But hundreds of other boxers have had their lives forever changed when they were crowned Golden Gloves champions. Producer Erica Gunderson has the story of two kings of the ring from the 1970s.
The first thing I ever knew about my father, and that was the first, that he was a Golden Glove champion.
Tim Adams says he didn't know he was a boxing champ's son until a stranger turned up at his house and began telling stories.
This man, he knew my father from the boxing days, and he had so many good things to say about my father. It was just unbelievable, and I'm sitting there sucking all this in, and in the time I'm telling myself, I think I want to be a Golden Glove champion.
Adams says learning that his father George was the 1943 Golden Gloves champion inspired him to take a swing at boxing himself.
My training was at home in the basement. Me and my father, we built our own little gym down there, and that is where I started training at.
Adams entered the Chicago Golden Gloves tournament in 1970 as a novice, where he finished second.
72, I came back, and that's when I won my first Golden Glove championship. So I had achieved that. And the Lord said, well, you got two hands. So 73, I won my second Golden Glove championship.
Adams won the Park District and CYO titles the same year, also known as the Triple Crown. Around the same time Adams was becoming a king in the ring, flyweight Frank Smith was making his own history. In 1973, Smith won the Chicago Golden Gloves flyweight title. In 74, he won the bantamweight title. And in 75, as a 125-pound 18-year-old,
I fought this kid by the name of Jesse Martin. He was a kid with muscles. I mean, he was buff. And I was this little skinny kid, you know. When I take off my robe, you know, everybody in the audience, you can hear them, you know, all saying this little skinny kid gonna get his butt whooped.
That little skinny kid, Frank Smith, wound up winning the whole thing, becoming the first fighter in the history of the Chicago Golden Gloves to win 3 titles in 3 years in 3 different weight classes. And this year, Adams and Smith will be inducted into the Hall of Fame as the tournament marks 100 years since its first competition in 1923. Adams says when he was a Chicago kid himself, boxing was a big deal.
This is what kids talked about in the neighborhood. Who was a Golden Glove champion? What fighter did this? So those was exciting, you know, times talking with, you know, friends about that, you know, and all the time in the back of my mind, I'm going to do this. Just to hear, you know, you on the street and, hey, did you see Tim Adams fight the other day? Man, Tim Adams, that's big time stuff.
Smith credits boxing and the men who coached him for keeping him on the straight and narrow.
My mom was single parent, raising 4 boys, and she decided that I need to go and find some extra curriculum besides, you know, getting into trouble. Yeah. So she took me up to Mr. Ferguson, which was the boxing coach at Wentworth Gardens facilities. Trust me, it worked, because I could have went the other way. So he saved my life. Boxing saved my life.
Smith went on to do the same for thousands of kids and teenagers, showing them the ropes as a Chicago Park District boxing coach.
I loved the training, the discipline.
Adams stayed in the fight too, building a decades-long career as a boxing referee.
Traveling, going into different countries, getting to meet people that you only going to see on TV. You know, all of those were just exciting times for me.
And though they both hung up their gloves long ago, Adams and Smith say they still look at their boxing days as a golden time.
It made you feel like you were somebody. You a champion, people recognize this.
You know, it's humbling, you know, but it's also gratifying. Yes, it's in my blood.
For Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, this is Erica Gunderson.
The 100th Golden Gloves tournament is already in full swing. You'll find more on that on our website. As the weather finally, hopefully, warms up, the Chicago Park District is offering teenagers a chance to work where they play this summer in seasonal positions like rec leaders and lifeguards.
Summer jobs at the Park District are your perfect job. They're outdoors, they're fun. It's a seasonal rec leader, it's a lifeguard, it's a junior laborer. So if you like to be outdoors, if you want to be at the lakefront, a pool, working with kids or working with nature, this is a great opportunity. We are located in all the 77 community neighborhoods of Chicago, and we love to place youth if there's an opening at the particular park that they grew up, at the particular pool. So yes, it's a way to come back and try to work near your home or in the community that you grew up or a park that you attended. So yes, there's definitely positions available throughout the city. We're also having a Teen Opportunity Fair next Saturday at Malcolm X College. All the staff from the Park District who are offering these jobs will be there to be able to answer any questions, give a little more detail, along with a lot of teen serving agencies. And you're able to apply for the job on the spot and have staff kind of walk you through or answer any questions that you might have.
And you'll find more on that job fair and how to apply on our website. That's it for us this weekend. For all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for sharing part of your weekend with us. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that's proud to serve its community through pro bono legal services.